poultry that have been introduced in Nigeria. We have the white leghorn, the Plymouth Rock. Those are the breed of poultry that have been introduced to Nigeria. Then the breed of pigs are Duroc, we have large white, we have large black, then landrace, and so on are examples of pigs that have been introduced into Nigeria. Now, the disadvantages of introduction. First, performance of animals in terms of quality and quantity may reduce with time. Over time, the animal has been breeding, it's been in the country. Over time, after several years, their performance may reduce. Then, animals will not be able to adapt to the prevailing conditions, the climatic conditions of the new area. Maybe it's being brought from a place where the temperature is low, and bringing it to a country that the temperature is quite higher than where it's coming from, you may not be able to cope. So that's another disadvantage. Then some diseases may not be discovered, which were not discovered in quarantine, may evolve. Some diseases that was not discovered at the quarantine stage may evolve at introduction. Then animals may be susceptible to certain local pests and diseases. Even though the animal is not local to that environment, but some diseases and pests, the animal may be prone or may be open to the attack of such. Another disadvantage of introduction is that it is expensive to practice, because you have to transfer animals from one country to another, take it to quarantine, and things like that. Then the last but not the least of the disadvantages I'll be talking about is that there may be severe losses of the animals through transportation. You have to carry them from one country to another, so there might be losses of the animals, maybe due to stress or what have you. So the animals might die or might have some losses in the course of transporting them. The second method of animal improvement is selection. Selection is a system of picking an animal from a group based on their phenotypic features that the animals have exhibited. Now you can see, okay, this particular cow, so big, the skin is good looking, the height is okay. So you choose the animal based on that physical feature that you have seen. And the physical features include the fertility rate, okay, it reproduces well, the infantile mortality doesn't die when they are young. It's not that, okay, after it has given birth, it's very fertile and it has 10 young ones, and before you know it, in 1 month, 8 of them is gone. No. So infantile mortality, that is, the animals don't die young, like they go through the infancy stage. Then growth rate is okay, that's another feature you consider. The size, then the milk quality and the quantity of milk is also another feature that is considered in selection. Fat and meat quality, then the rate of egg laying, the color of the eggshell, the color of the feather of the coat is another thing you consider. The ability of the animal to walk, maybe you want to use it as a labor on the farm. Then the resistance of such animals to disease. Those are the features that you consider in selection. Now, in selection, the phenotypic features, that is the physical appearance, such phenotypic features that I mentioned earlier can only be expressed if they are present in the genes of the animal. So if such characters are not in the genes, that is, they are not present, the animals don't carry it in its gene. You cannot see it in the animal. For instance, if an animal does not carry a big size on its gene, you can't see the animal becoming big. So selection is usually undertaken to maximize the genetic gain. So what is on the gene is what selection maximizes. Then the traits to be selected must be such that varies among the animals. So it is known as heritability. Another thing is that selection does not create variation, but it only acts on variation already present in the organism. When you select what the animal don't have before in selection, it doesn't gain it by doing selection for it. So it doesn't create variation, rather it acts on the variation that is present already in the organism. Then selection can either be natural or artificial. Now, the natural selection. The natural selection is based on Charles Darwin's theory that nature selects those traits or characteristics that are useful to it and rejects the ones that are not useful. So this is a natural thing, but was propounded by Charles Darwin. He says that nature selects the traits that are useful to it, and the ones that are not useful, it just rejects them. So this theory propounded by Charles Darwin was earlier stressed by Jean Lamarck in his theory of use and disuse. Whereby he says when there is a character that is being used over time, the character gets improved, and the character that is not used over time, the character is lost. So it's similar to what Charles Darwin said. Natural selection is the ability of an animal, individual or in group, to wade through unfavorable conditions and survive to reproduce, and then discard or reject those that are unable to survive. For instance, you have a group of animals in a particular environment, and maybe the temperature is like on a normal day like 40 degrees Celsius, kind of high. Animals that cannot survive that temperature over time will die off, and the animals that will be left are those that can survive. So that's just a natural thing. Nobody killed those animals because they could not survive. It's just nature. That's the natural thing that happened to them. So they wade through unfavorable conditions. The animals that are able to jack up their temperature, in that example that I used, to meet with that condition and still reproduce. You know, when they reproduce themselves, it is better in their offspring. But when such animals could not, or some animals that could not meet up with that temperature, over time they will just die off, and that their inability to meet up with the temperature dies off with them. So that is natural selection. Then artificial selection is based on man's intelligence and experience on what he wants to have in his animal. So this one involves a man saying, okay, I want my animal to have this, I want the animals I produce to do this, I want my poultry to have this kind of egg, I want the color to be like this. So this artificial selection involves man, while natural selection is just done by nature. It's a natural phenomenon that occurs. Now, there are 4 types of artificial selection. You have individual or mass selection, then progeny testing, selection by show winning, then pedigree or family selection. Individual or mass selection is when an animal or a group of animals are selected based on their own performance. You see, okay, these animals, they have good yield, so they are the ones that are selected because they have good yield. That's individual selection. You selected that individual because you saw a good trait. Then for progeny selection, these are animals that are selected based on their offspring. It's because of their children that you are choosing them, not themselves. Now you can see, okay, these animals produce this kind of offspring, so you choose them because of their offspring. The mothers of other animals that you don't like their offspring now, they are discarded. So that is why it is called progeny selection. They are chosen based on the performance of their children. Then show winning selection. This is the system of selecting an animal that has just won an agricultural show. You know, there are several games that they take animals through. So maybe they put a particular task ahead of animals. Okay, they have to cover this distance, or they have to do this particular work. So the animals that pass this test, they are chosen. That is show winning. After a show and the animal won the election. So some of them may be genetic. That thing may be inherent to their blood. So they can say, okay, this particular kind of animal, because it's won this kind of game, then it will be able to do this kind of activity, or it has this trait that I'm looking for. So that is what is called show winning selection. Then the last of the method or the type of artificial selection is called the pedigree or the family selection. This kind of selection is based on the performance of their ancestors, unlike the progeny selection that's based on the performance of their children. This is based on the performance of their ancestors. Okay, their parents were this, okay, they had this size, they had this color, they have this yield. So, okay, their children, so or their offspring, we have such kind of performance. That is why they are chosen. Now, pedigree selection is only possible when there is adequate record keeping, because okay, over time, say okay, this also animals have been having this yield, have been having this color, have been having this and that. So it is adequate when it is possible when there is adequate record keeping. Pedigree selection is also believed. It is believed that many animals have inherited certain traits from their ancestors, and such the animals will perform equally or even better than their ancestors. It is believed that that character is in the genes, so the children will carry what is in the genes of their parents. Then animals may be rejected or accepted based on the performance of their relatives, and say, oh, this animal, okay, when they give birth, they don't take care of their children. There are some animals like that, say, we don't like it, so we just ignore it, we don't select it for further reproduction. But when you say, okay, this particular kind of animal, when it reproduces, it takes care of the children and keeps all of them, none of them gets injured or is dead in the process of winning them. So you choose them. But those that have a bad character or performance are rejected. So that is what happens in pedigree or family selection. Now, the advantages of selections. First, the spread of disease can be reduced. When this animals or this group of animals are prone to having disease, so you just don't reproduce them anymore, you just park them aside. So you are able to eradicate or reduce such diseases amidst your animals. Then only animals with desirable characters are selected. Animals that, okay, you like their attitude, you like their performance, are the only ones that you select under selection. Then only the best naturally available animal is selected. Only the best naturally available is also selected. You know, there is natural selection, so the best that is naturally available is the one that is selected. Then best quality of breeds of animal can also be selected under selection. Then parasitic spread can also be reduced. The disadvantages of selection. First is that selection is based on phenotypic